Okay, here's a little review on section 1.3. We're having a quiz tomorrow. So here's some questions that you had in class. Now these first problems are not questions I'm going to put on the quiz, but you did ask these in class today, so I thought I would go over them. So the first one was number 67. All right, so let's write that out. So you have to solve. These all say to solve. And here's the problem. It's x cubed minus 8 equals 0. Now, it looks at first glance like in order to solve this, you would just add an 8 to both sides and take the cube root. And that would give you one or two or several possible answers. But in order to get all the answers that we want, all the things that will you could put in for x that makes this thing equal to 0, we have to factor this thing. So what we need to do is we need to factor it. If you recognize it, it's a difference of 2 cubes. So the difference of 2 cubes, little bit of background, is this. Well, let's start like this. Here's how I like to approach it. So the difference of 2 cubes, if I was to factor it, I always like to take a look at this sign right here, and then that's going to help us figure out what are signs inside these two parentheses. So this is going to have a binomial, 2 terms. This is going to have a trinomial, 3 terms, and I got to figure out what my signs are. So I always say this. I always say same, opposite, positive, SOP. So it's the same sign. So the first one's going to be the same sign. Okay, and there's going to be 2 signs in here because you got 3 terms and you got 2 signs in between them. So you're going to go opposite. So it's same, opposite, positive. So that's the same sign. This is the opposite. So the opposite of negative is positive. And this third sign that's going to be in here is always going to be positive. So this third one's always going to be positive. And so what are we going to put in here? We're going to put an A here. Make that look a little bit better. There we go. B. And then this right here is going to be A squared. And this is going to be b squared, and then in between is going to be ab. This is where I messed up in class today. That's why I'm redoing this lesson, because I messed up a little bit today in class. So I put a 2ab, and I was thinking of something completely different, thinking of perfect squares and that kind of stuff. But it should not have been a 2. If I didn't put the 2, I would have gotten the problem right. But this should be ab. So that's how you factor a difference of 2 cubes. So let's figure out how we're going to do this. Let's rewrite this just a little bit, though. So this is x cubed, so we're cubing the x. And what are we cubing to get 8? Well, we're cubing a 2. All right, so I'm going to rewrite it like this because that helps us with our a and our b. So our a is the x, and our b is the 2. And that's what we're going to plug into this little formula, if you want to call it that. All right, so it's a minus b, so it's just x minus 2. And then it's a squared. So again, the a was the x right here, so that's going to be x squared plus ab. These two multiplied, x times 2 or 2 times x. We're going to write it like that, 2 times x. And then plus b squared. This is a negative 2, but it's squared, so it's going to be positive. That's why this is always going to be positive right here. And it's going to be a 4. All right. Now remember, all this is equal to 0, so let's make sure that we set this equal to 0, because this is what x cubed minus 8 is. This right here is x cubed minus 8. If you were to multiply it through, you'd see that this comes out to x cubed minus 8. So what we need to do, we have 2 factors here, 2 things that are being multiplied together, and it equals 0, so we're going to set them both equal to 0. So I'm going to take x minus 2, set that equal to 0, and then I'm going to take all of this, x squared plus 2x plus 4, and I'm going to set that equal to 0 as well. All right, let's do the arithmetic on this. This is pretty easy. Add a 2 to both sides, so x is equal to 2. So that's going to be one of my solutions. It's not my full solution. If you would have added an 8 and then taken the cube root, you would have just gotten 2. But there's more to the story. That's why we can't just do that. So that's why we have to factor this thing out. So let's take a look at this. Is there any way to factor this? Is there any 2 numbers that multiply to be 4 and add up to be 2? Well, there's not. So our only choice, not our only choice, but probably our best choice at this point, is to put this in the quadratic formula. So let's go ahead and put this in the quadratic formula. That noise in the background is my printer. It's just redoing whatever it's doing. All right, so let's just do the quadratic formula. If you remember what that is, it's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that's all over 2a. Let's move this up just a little bit. There we go. All right, so what I like to do, let's put a 1 in front of this. What I like to do is write down what my a, b, and c are. After you do this a while, you don't really have to do this part, but a lot of people feel comfortable writing down what the a, b, and c is. So let's see, so what is the a in this situation right here? Well, it's always the coefficient, so it's 1. A is 1. The b is 2. And let's see, yep, and the c is 4. So what I'm going to do is plug stuff in. So x equals, it's negative b. So this was a positive 2. So what's the opposite of positive 2? It's negative 2. And then plus or minus square root of b squared. So 2 squared, let's just write that down. B squared or 2 squared is 4 minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is also 4. Extend that out a little bit. See, there's my a, b, and c. It just plugs stuff in here. And this is over 2 times a, or just 2 times 1. I don't really need to put that there, so let's just figure out what this is. This is plug and chug. So we plugged everything in, and now we just chug away. We just do the arithmetic and figure out what's left over. So negative 2 plus or minus square root. And let's figure out what's in here. This is a 4. Let's do a little bit of this in our head, I think. So 4 times 1 times 4, which is 4 times 4, which is 16. So it's 4 minus 16. Well, 4 minus 16 is negative 12. If you wanted to put 4 minus 16 in there, you could have. It just causes you to do another step. All right, and that's all over 2. Now what we need to do is simplify this right here. Let's scooch it up some more. So this is negative 2 plus or minus. Now, what about 12? How are we going to break down 12? It's the square root of, I'll take in consideration the negative here just a second, but what I want to just worry about is the 12 right now. So 12 is the same as 4 times 3. So the square root of 4 is 2, and then the square root of 3. But we can't forget about that negative. That's super important. That's what this whole lesson, section 1.3, is about this, the negative inside of a square root. Normally, we wouldn't be able to take a negative inside of a square root, but now that we know about complex numbers and imaginary numbers, now we can do that. So what that becomes, it's the square root of negative 1, which is just an I. So we're going to put an I right there. And again, all this is over 2. We simplify some more. So if you take a look at this, this is negative 2 over 2. What I'm doing is breaking it down. I'm taking both of these things on top and I'm dividing them by 2. And then I got plus or minus 2 square root of 3 over 2, right? Because that's over 2 as well. And then the I. One more simplified thing and then we have it done. Negative 2 over 2 is negative 1. Plus or minus. This 2 and this 2 cancel out. So I'm left with the square root of 3I. So that's what x is equal to. So let's do this. With the magic of my little board here, I'm going to copy that, slide up to the top, and then let's paste it, and let's scooch that over a little bit, and down, and then now that is my answer. It's part of my answer. These two that are circled are my whole entire answer, okay? Now, again, if you look in the book, remember they write it in a set notation. So if you look in the book, they'll probably put, I'm not really sure what order they put it in. They might put negative 1 minus the square root of 3I, put a comma. They'll put negative 1 plus the square root of 3I, comma, and then they'll put a 2. So this is probably how the book writes the answer. I'm perfectly fine if you just circle both of these things. X equals 2 and x equals negative 1 plus or minus square root of 3I. And that is how you do that problem. It's a pretty weird looking answer for that problem, but that's what it is. All right, let's do another one. The other question that was asked in class was number 69. We actually did this in class, but I'm going to do it anyway because for those who weren't there or if you want to check it out again. So here it is. It's x to the 4th equals 16. Again, so it looks like I could just take the 4th root of this and take the 4th root of this. Well, the 4th root of 16 is 2 and negative 2. But that wouldn't be the whole story, okay? What you have to do is you've got to factor it. You've got to factor it, find all the factors, set them equal to 0, and then you can find x. Because by just taking the fourth root of this, we're only going to get basically half, not basically, exactly half of our answers that we need for this. So first thing I'm going to do is set this equal to 0. How do I do that? Take the 16, put it on the left-hand side. So I'm going to go x to the fourth minus 16 equals 0. I just subtracted a 16 from both sides. That's supposed to be a 4. It looks kind of funky. It's bugging me. Let's make it look a little bit better, like a 4. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we are going to factor this thing. Right? And you say, what in the world? How in the world am I going to factor this? And x to the fourth. I don't know how to factor x to the fourth, so I'm actually not going to factor x to the fourth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this because this kind of looks like a difference of 2 squareds. Is there something that's being squared to give you x to the fourth, and is there something being squared to give you 16? Well, if you think about it closely, if I took x squared and then squared it, isn't that the same thing as x to the fourth? Sure thing. What's being squared to give you 16? That's a little easier. That's 4. So 4 is being squared. So this is a difference of 2 squares. If you remember the difference of 2 squares, again, we have to go back to our factoring, which wasn't all that long ago, just a few weeks ago. Then this was one of our special factorings. So if you remember how to factor this, this is one of the easier ones. If you recognize that it's a difference of 2 squares, one's plus, one's minus. You're going to put an A here, a B here, and the same exact thing over here. So they're almost the same, except one's plus and one's minus. That's how you factor a difference of 2 squares. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do right here. But in this situation, the x squared, this x squared right there is our A, and this 4 is our B. And so wherever you have A and B here, you're going to put in an x squared for A and put a 4 in for B. So that's what we're going to do. I like to put my parentheses first, put them right next to each other, set it equal to 0. And so it's A goes in the first spot. So what's my A? The A is what's being squared. Well, this x squared is being squared. Put a plus and a minus. I usually do that first. And then what's being squared to give you 16? Well, the 4 is being squared. So the 4 is the B. So I'm going to put a 4 here and a 4 here. All right, so we're good to go. Let's keep going. This is it's two things being multiplied together, and my answer is 0. So what I have to do, just like I did in the other problem, I have to set them both equal to 0. So I put x squared plus 4 equal to 0, and then I've got x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. And now we just continue. I'm going to scooch this up. We're going to continue and get x by itself. We're going to solve for x. So in this situation, I can't factor this. There's no way I can factor this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract a 4 from both sides to get x by itself. But that's going to give me x squared equals negative 4. In the past, this would have been a problem because what number times itself is negative 4? Well, nothing, all right? Because you can't multiply two real numbers together and then that are exactly the same number and then get a negative answer. You can't do it. But with imaginary numbers or complex numbers, we can do this now. So what I'm going to do is take the square root of this. We're going to take the square root of this. Don't forget the plus or minus because you get two signs here. So that gives you x, and now I've got plus or minus. The square root of 4 is just a 2, but we got to take in consideration that negative. So the square root of negative 1 is I, and that's part of our answer. It's not our whole answer because we still got to do this part right here, but that's part of our answer. I'm going to go ahead and circle that part, but I'm going to circle something else here in a minute. So what I would do right here, I would go ahead and factor this. In class, I think I added a 4, but I thought I'd do this just a little bit different. So this is a difference of 2 squares again. So it's actually, in this problem, it's 2 difference of 2 squares. So this is going to be, I always like to put the signs first, plus and minus. What's being squared to give you x squared? An x is. So I put that here and here. What's being squared to give you 4? Well, a 2 is right there. And now look, I got, again, two things multiplied together is equal to 0. So I set them both equal to 0. Now it's super easy. So x plus 2, x minus 2, set them both equal to 0. So x is equal to negative 2, and x is equal to positive 2. If you wanted, you could write it like this. You could write plus or minus 2. There's a bunch of ways you could write the answer that would be right. So you actually get 4 answers. Do you see that? You get a positive 2i and a negative 2i. You get a positive 2 and a negative 2. There are 4 different answers. And if you look at this, the reason we have 4 answers is because of this right here. There's a thing called the fundamental theorem of algebra. I'm not going to really get into it, but it basically says that the number of exponents, the highest power of exponent in your problem is how many answers you're going to get. So this means you're going to have 4 answers. So look, I've got positive 2i, negative 2i. That's 2 answers. And I got a positive 2 and a negative 2. That's another 2 answers. That's 4 answers altogether. And so that works with that fundamental theorem of algebra. All right, let's try another one. And again, this is just going over homework problems from 1-3. This is not really what's going to be on the quiz. I'll take a few minutes after I'm done this next problem, and show you what's going to be on the quiz, or show you some problems that are going to be like it, not everything. All right, the next question you guys asked in class today was 71, and I got a little stuck on that too. But then I got back to my room and started working on it by myself, and for some reason it starts clicking when I get by myself and I'm not in front of you guys. I've been away from math for almost 10 years now, so got to cut me a little break here. All right, so here it is. We got to solve for x. That's what it says to do. So we're going to solve. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce something to you that we're going to do in the next lesson. But you may not have seen this before. I'm not really sure. So if you look at this, you're like, oh my goodness, I got this x to the 4th again. What's going on here? How in the world am I going to factor this? I don't know how to factor when I have x to the 4th. So what we're going to do is it's not really a trick, but it's kind of a way to make it a little easier at first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a thing called substitution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to you can use any letter that you want. I just decided to use A. A lot of times in the books they use the letter U, but I'm just going to use A because my name starts with A, so I'll put an A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let A equal x squared. How in the world did I know to even do that? Well, this is the key right here. If this was like x squared plus 13x plus 36 equals 0, I might have a way to actually factor this if it was. But it's not, is it? It's not x squared plus 13x. It's x to the 4th plus 13x squared. But what if it was? What if it was? Then we could factor it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to let some arbitrary letter, just call it A, I'm going to let it equal x squared. And what I'm going to do is this. So if A is equal to x squared, what would this be? Well, this is x squared squared. You see that? We just did a problem earlier that's kind of like that, okay? It's x squared to the 2nd, or x squared squared. Well, if I let A equal x squared, I could rewrite this a squared. You're probably thinking, what in the world are you doing? Well, think about this. If A is x squared, so A is x squared, and then we're squaring x squared, what does that give us? It gives us x to the 4th. All right? The more you do these, the better you'll get. I remember the first time, I think I was in college, first time I did this stuff, and I was thinking, what are they doing? How in the world did they know to make that? But sometimes you just kind of see it and you know to use it. So remember what we're going to do with this x squared. Instead of calling it x squared, we're just going to call it A. Once we actually do this, then you'll look at it and say, oh, wow, that was a great idea. That did work. Made it look pretty easy. So this right here looks way better than it did right here with the x to the 4th and the x squared. Because I can factor this. I can factor something, well, if it's factorable, but I can factor something that's got a squared, then an A, and then a number equal to 0. I can factor that. And this does actually factor very nice. Okay, they rigged this thing so it factors nice and easy for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor it using the A. And you're like, well, how in the world do you just stick an A in there? Well, we're going to deal with that A here in a second. We're not just going to leave it like this. We're going to replace it. We're going to replace that A back with the x squared as soon as we factor it. But this just makes it a lot easier. We recognize this. Okay, we're familiar with factoring something like this, not this. So this is going to be a lot easier for us. So here we go. They're both positive, so that makes it really easy. So this is going to be an A and an A. Now, what multiplies together to be 36, and those same two numbers add up to be 13? Well, you got several choices for 36, but I'll just do it really quick. 9 and 4. 9 times 4 is 36, and 9 plus 4 is 13. You just have to go through the combination of numbers in your head to get 36 and then adds up to 13. But there you go. Now look, these two things are multiplied together and it equals 0. So I'm going to take both of these and set them equal to 0. We've done this a couple times today already. Several times today already. We've done it way in the past. So let's solve for A. A is equal to -9 and A is equal to -4. But that's not my answer. My answer is not A equals, I want to solve for what? I want to solve for X. So now we're going to put this back in. So I took an X squared out and stuck an A in place of it. Now what I'm going to do is take that X squared and put it back in for the A. Remember, A is equal to X squared. So instead of writing A, now I'm going to go back and put in, replace it, substitute it in with that X squared. So now X squared is equal to -9. And same thing here. X squared is equal to -4. Scoot it up. Now we can actually solve for X. We've done this several times already today. So we take the square root, put a plus or minus, take the square root of that, take the square root of that, put a plus or minus. So this is X equals. After you do this for a while, you don't have to put that square root right there. You know it's going to go away. I'm just doing it just to remind you that you do the same thing to both sides. Now, it works out nice and easy. They put a 9 and a 4, so you don't have to make it look real weird. It comes out to a nice number. So plus or minus, what's the square root of 9? It's 3. Let's deal with the negative. It's a square root of -1, which is an I. So that's 1, or that's 2 actually, answers for X. What about this one? That's going to be X. That's going to be plus or minus. You should be able to see this right away. That's 2I. There are your answers. It looks like 2 answers, but it's actually 4 answers. Remember what we talked about, that fundamental theorem of algebra? Look at this. Our highest power is to the 4th. Look how many answers we got. We got 4 answers. We got a positive 3i and a negative 3i, a positive 2i and a negative 2i. That's 4 different distinct answers. So that's how we do number 71. All right, so those are the questions that you asked in class today. And that's how you do the problems. I said I would go through it. So I'm looking at the homework problems, okay? So I'll tell you what, I'll kind of, what's the best way to do this? I'm going to give you problems from the homework that are going to be like the ones on the quiz, but I'm not saying that these are the exact ones, okay? So like one of the problems on the quiz, tell you what, I got the quiz in front of me. I think I do. I just printed it out. Okay, I figure I would reward you a little bit. If you've watched it this far, if you've gone this far on this video, I figure I'll give you a little bit of a reward. And just, I'm not going to tell you the exact problems, and I'm going to show you the type of problems that are going to be on the quiz. So here's the numbers for the quiz, and this is your homework numbers, all right? So that you, oops, that's a weird little apostrophe there. So these are your homework numbers, all right? So number 1 on the quiz is going to look something like, I'm not going to tell you exactly. So there's a bunch of problems like 9 to 14, okay, that are all kind of the same. So number 1 on the quiz is going to be a problem that looks like one of those, all right? So I think this is a good way to do it. Number 2 on the quiz is going to look like, let's see, kind of like 17 to 20 or 15 to 20. Yeah, let's say 15 to 20. Okay, so about numbers 15 to 20. Any one of those, there's one of them, and I actually picked them from the homework. Okay, so one of these is exactly number 2 from the quiz. All right, I don't know if this helps you or not, but we'll see. Actually, that goes to, yeah, that's fine. Actually, this goes to 22. So not just 20, but 22. All right, there we go. Yep. Okay, so number 3 on the quiz looks like, actually 3 and 4 I'll put. So 3 and 4 on the quiz kind of looks like on the homeworks, it's the ones with the fractions. So numbers 23 to 28. All right, so number 3 and 4 on the quiz look like any of those, okay? Let's do number 5 on the quiz. Number 5 on the quiz, now you got a 50-50 chance on this one, so 29 or 30. Okay, so one of those, 29 or 30, is number 5 on the quiz, right? And I think we went over that homework one time. Let's see, what's the next one? Number 6 on the quiz. All right, I'm gonna have to flip my page. So it's gonna kind of look like numbers 33 to, I don't know, I'd say around 40, something like that. Okay, so any of those, 33 to around 40, is going to look like number, actually 6 and 7. Okay, so 6 and 7, if you look at numbers 33 to 40, numbers 6 and 7 on the quiz are going to look like that. All right, and then number 8 on the quiz is going to look like 53 to 56. 53 to 56. All right, let me scooch this up. Hopefully you've had enough time to write all that down. Number 9 on the quiz is going to look like 57 to 60. 57 to 60. And then number 10 on the quiz is going to look like 61 to 64. There you go. So I didn't tell you exactly what's on the quiz, but my goodness, I told you quite a bit. All right. So again, these are the quiz problems right here, 10 problems on the quiz, and these are the type of problems that I'm going to put on the quiz. Not just the type, but actually I took them right from the homework. All right. So one of these problems, 9 to 14, is exactly the problem on the quiz. So I think I'll leave it there. Hopefully you watched to the end and you saw all that stuff, so that should help you out a little bit. We've gone over questions from these problems already in class, so hopefully you were there and you did your homework and you paid attention when we went over questions from that stuff. Try them again, look in the back, try the odd ones, all right? Now I did put some even ones on here. Some are odd, some are even on the quiz. So I'm just not telling you which ones. But what I would do if I were you is I would try 9, 11, 13. All right, do those, look in the back, see what the answer is, and see if you got them right. And then you should be pretty confident that you should get that right. Same thing for the rest of them. All right, so I'll leave the rest up to you, and that'll be it. Did I unpause? Yeah, I did unpause it because I paused it to get that quiz problem, and I didn't remember if I unpaused it or not. Okay, so that's it. Hope you're ready for the quiz tomorrow, and we'll see you then. Bye.